Welcome to the Shiva Tammuz live broadcast and live events. We're actually in two locations this year. We're here in Manhattan at Safra Synagogue and in Deal, New Jersey. I'd like to start by saying that this shiur and all the shiurim should be an aliyah for the neshama of Lily Safra, Aliyah Shalom, Leah Bat Chana, someone who really devoted her life towards so much good, so much philanthropy, and the actions that she took are still, Baruch Hashem, with us and reverberate throughout the Jewish world. This morning, someone sent me an article that had just been published by, I think, Jerusalem Post. And the article was about someone in the IRGC. This is the people who, the regime, who are cruelly running the Iranian people and have done since 1979. And this person, who I think is very big in the regime, but specifically in the broadcast area of it, because they have a lot of state-run TV, he said, you know, these Jews during this 12-day war, they did something which was very, very cruel. They used mystical powers and they used the occult to defeat us. They used what he called Jin. Jin is, I guess, this Middle Eastern idea in other religions of mystical powers that the Jewish people used in order to win this very short and decisive victory during this 12-day war. And I read this article, and you can't not laugh, because they call it whatever they want to call it, but we know it's the God of Israel. Baruch Hashem. Hashem protected us, still protects us. Right now we're hearing stories that are filtering out of Iran about the tremendous efforts that our defense forces, Baruch Hashem, Hashem should protect them, did sometimes for years. But one little wrong word, one little wrong action could have ruined everything. You're really on a hair's breadth. And only with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu did we get through that time. It's worth remembering that. You can have all the defenses you want, but in the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who pulls us right through to the finish line. We are on the 17th of Tammuz. And on this date, the Mishnah tells us in Ta'anit, there were 5 calamities that happened, that occurred to the Jewish people. And it lists the 5 calamities. And they start with the tablets, the luchot of Moshe Rabbeinu, smashed. He crushed the luchot after the sin of the golden calf. That was Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction. Then it goes on, talks about the sacrifices that were suspended during the first temple period. We know, of course, the walls of Yerushalayim, that's what we always talk about. They were breached. And then 3 weeks later, we know we have Tisha B'Av, is when the Yerushalayim and the Beit HaMikdash was finally destroyed. It took 3 weeks. How they held off these Romans for 3 weeks from the walls. I mean, it's only like an hour to get from the walls to, to the actual Beit HaMikdash. And yet they managed to hold them off for 3 weeks. That itself is a miracle, but we'll leave that aside. Apostolos burned the Torah. We just read about it today in our tefillot. And an idol was put into the temple courtyard. When the idol was put in, was the first temple, the second temple. So these events happened with many years between them. But you can't not notice that the first of the 5 is not just chronologically first, the breaking of the luchot by Moshe Rabbeinu. The rabbis tell us that the first of something is always the catalyst for everything else. That means it started with the breaking of the tablets, but everything else that happened, all future events on that date that relate to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash come from this breaking of the luchot. It's all in there. So it's not just chronologically first. The other 4 would not have happened had these luchot not been broken. Why? What's so bad about breaking the luchot? Isn't it, excuse me for saying, isn't it good that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchot? Isn't that a good thing? Worshipping the golden calf, Chet Egel, that's a bad thing. But he came down and he broke them. And he wasn't in trouble for doing it. Hashem said, Tov lacha, you did a good thing. Breaking the luchot is a great reaction. you really match the moment with the right event of breaking the luchot, the tablets. Everything you need to know about Shivas of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, because they go together, they are bookends. There's an arc that goes through one to the other. They can all be located right here with the Chet HaEgel, with sin of the golden calf, and the breaking of the luchot. Says the Gemara in Eruvin something unbelievable. The Gemara in Eruvin, Daf Nun Dalet, says, had these luchot not been broken, had they remained intact, we, the Jewish people, would have never had any ummah sholeter lehem, would have had any nation hurting us throughout history. Can you imagine? Had Moshe Rabbeinu come down from the luchot and turned around and said, you know what? I'm not going to break the luchot. I'm going to hide them. I'm not going to smash his luchot. I'm going to put them away. You do teshuvah, and then I'm going to return these luchot to you. Can you imagine? Says the Gemara, had that happened, Mashiach would have come immediately, and no nation, not the Midianites, not the Moabites, not Amalek, not Gog and Magog, not Tucker Carlson, not Candace Owens, anyone who hates us would have had no power of us whatsoever. So the question is, why did Moshe Rabbeinu break them? Just put them aside, hide them, bury them, say do teshuvah. And the question gets even better, because he did break them, and then on Yom Kippur we got a second set. We got a second set from Hashem, because Hashem says to Moshe, Pasalacha, we read about it in the Kriya of the Torah we just did today. So we did get a second set. So what is going on over here? They're broken, they're smashed, because we sinned with the golden calf, and then Yom Kippur comes, we get a second set. Very, very mysterious of what exactly is going on over here. In order to understand this, my friends, I want to spend a few minutes trying to understand what is the purpose of luchot anyway. Why do we even need these two tablets? What was the purpose of them? We have a Torah. Everything that was going to be written by Moshe Rabbeinu and put in the Torah, including the Aseret Dibrot that were written in the Torah, in Parashat Yitro and Vetchanan twice. And yet, no, you need to have this stone block. It was actually a block. There were square blocks. This design you see nowadays is relatively new, only a few hundred years old. But even the design is very, very telling. There were two blocks, and we know the writing was etched, charut. The words were etched inside the stone. So why do we need them? And if you say, well, it's only a few pesukim, so you know what? Take a little bit of parchment and write a few pesukim and hold it up like that. V'zot Torah. That's what we should do. Is that not so unusual? We have a mezuzah. It's got a few pesukim in it. We have to fill in. That's got a few pesukim in it, a couple of paragraphs. So we know you're able to take at will, if needed for a mitzvah, especially a few pesukim, and put them onto a piece of parchment. That should be it. What is this interface between Hashem talking the Torah to us and Moshe Rabbeinu writing them down? And before it was written down, it was given, etched, charut, into stone. What exactly is going on over here? And the Midrash gives us an amazing answer, and this is going to answer everything you need to know, not just about the luchot, not just about Shivas Tammuz and the breaking in Tisha B'Av, but everything you need to know about being Jewish. It's all located right here and right now. The Midrash says, you know why? Because there's two ways to convey information in written form. One is dio, on cloth, on parchment, or on paper. But that is two separate entities that one is being imposed on the other. But they're separate. They're just being attached. They can wear away. But they're two separate identities. Ink, parchment. And that is the Torah that we read from all the time. That's good. But there's something much better than that. And the Midrash says, Sheyichtavu Torah al luach libam. Hashem wanted us to know that when it comes to the Torah, it should be written on the tablet of your heart. I mentioned before that design, right, you see in pretty much every synagogue, right? That is actually based upon a pasuk, possibly this one, that you should put the Torah, your heart, on the Torah. This is a heart shape. See that? A heart shape everyone's doing now? On the Torah. That's actually where it comes from. The real design was blocks. But based upon this Midrash, which is based upon a pasuk in Mishlei, Katvam aluch lebecha, you should write the Torah and put your heart on top of it. That's where it comes from. See, when you etch something into something else, you are integrating them. They become one. It's not the word and the medium. The word and the medium become united. They are one thing. They are engraved. And when something's etched inside something, it's not two separate entities like ink and parchment. They become one thing. So Hashem is telling us and told us that if you want to do this Torah thing, which Moshe Rabbeinu is going to write down, he'll write it down for you. You're going to get the written version of that. But you need to understand that you need to have the Torah not as an intellectual pursuit. It needs to be an emotional one. It has to be heartfelt. You have to put the Torah onto the tablet of your heart. Your heart has to be engraved. The heart obviously represents emotions, Why the heart? Because when you see someone you love, you get excited, your heart starts pumping faster. So the heart is always the metaphor for that which gets you emotionally connected. Not two separate entities. There's a lot of Torah being studied around America today, in universities. And sometimes there's Jewish professors, sometimes non-Jewish professors studying the Old Testament. It's not old, it's Chadash. B'chol Yom. That's what they call it. What's the difference between them and us? They study Torah, we study Torah. Because their study of Torah is limited. It's like ink on parchment. It's two separate realities. And it stains cerebral in your brain. But Hashem says that's not the purpose of the Torah. The purpose of the Torah is to penetrate your heart. You need to have an emotional connection to it. If you just study like some academic text, you're missing the whole point. It's all meant to be on your heart. The Maral says on this idea that it goes much deeper. This is this amazing, amazing idea. He says, the fact that the luchot are a demonstration of our spiritual connection to Hashem. That's really what they are, the emotional connection. They're not just an expression of it, they are it. The fact that we are able to have an emotional connection to Hashem, that we go to the Kotel and we cry, we go to the Beit Knesset and we feel a connection. And we feel emotionally one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu at certain times, that only exists because there were luchot. So he says amazingly that the luchot don't just represent an expression of this idea, they are the idea. Had the luchot not been given, we would not have had that close emotional connection with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Torah, with Tefillah, with the mitzvah, with Eretz Yisrael, whatever it is for you, and you know what connects you, this is it. But we have to go a little bit further. And we have to go further because the Gemara, and we'll see in a moment, a Mishnah as well says, it's not enough just to charut, to engrave the letters in your heart. Al takri charut. Don't just read that it was engraved. Charut is engraved. Also cherut. What's cherut? Free. You see, if you do what we are being told needs to happen and have an emotional, spiritual connection with Torah mitzvot, you have cherut, freedom. So the Torah wasn't just etched, engraved, it also frees you. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If you read through the Torah and you leave reading any parasha pretty much, and you think, I'm freer than I was before, you're lying. There's a lot of mitzvot in there. I mean, that's 630 mitzvot just in the Torah. Forget all the rabbinic stuff. That makes you free. I'm less free. Shabbat comes, I'm less free. Yom Kippur, Shiva B'Tammuz, we're all less free. So if you think the idea of Torah and the freedom it's talking about is one of physical freedom, obviously, that's not the idea of charut, chirut. So what exactly is it? So to do that, we need to jump to a Mishnah. It's actually a Braita at the end of Pirkei Avot. And in the last chapter, the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avot, is Braita, which is a little lower level than Mishnah, but was written by Tanaim, so it's higher than Gemara at least, There's a pecking order, right? Okay? We have Mishnah, Braita, Gemara, and that's the way things flow. But over there it says, if you study Torah, you will be free. You have the ability to free yourself. En lacha ben chorin, ela mish yosek b'Torah. You don't have someone who's free, unlike someone who is osek, who learns Torah. Once again, why do we need to have this in the Braita and in the Gemara? What is this juxtaposition between both of them? Tell me this idea in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avot, and then that's it. I get it. Okay, I get it. I study Torah, I go free. But you need the Mishnah. And I'll tell you why. Because there are two types of freedom. One is in the Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, and one is in the Gemara and Eruvin. And what are the two freedoms we're talking about? This should resonate with you today, 2025, 5785, extremely well. One type of freedom, which comes first, because it's a Braita, a Mishnah, is in order to go free, you need to free your own personal slavery. We are all confined spiritually. We are all being bombarded inside ourselves by Yetzer Hara. Study Torah, charut al libecha, etch it onto your heart. Feel some spiritual connection when you study Torah. Feel a connection towards your fellow Jew. When you see another Jew being hurt, you should feel something. I know for everyone watching today, I'm assuming you hear what's coming, the anti-Semitism, you feel it in your heart, but there's many Jews that do not. Many Jews don't identify as being Jewish. They don't feel anything. It's hard to believe that. They are missing the charut, and therefore they have no cherut. They are not free. Their soul is chained. It's being held captive by other forces. Once you're able to do that, then we move into the Gemara, which is the second type of freedom. And the second type of freedom comes around because you freed yourself from the first type, which is what? No nation can hurt you. You see, the two work in tandem, but it starts with us. First, we have the Mishnah that says, free yourself. Feel a personal connection. Once you start to do that, says Hashem, I will make sure that the luchot are charut, and you will have chirut from all the other nations that want to hurt you. That means there is a Malik out there in the world. And a Malik want to hurt us. They're trying very hard. And now they have so much chutzpah, like the Mishnah Sota says. The Yetzer Hara, the Satan has a chutzpah. They want just to come up and say, we want to kill you Jews. I see them on social media. Used to be, I hate Israel. I don't like this. Now they're like, you're another Jew, you're the devil. They'll tell me straight up. I get hundreds of such messages and comments all the time. That's just little me. It's unbelievable. This is Midat Amalek. And they're coming up all over the world. But there's also a spiritual Amalek that works in tandem with the physical nation. And we know that because there is a gematria. There is a numerical value of Amalek, which equals the number 240, which I always remember, because that was the bus they used to take me to yeshiva. It was the number 240. I always said, here I go to Amalek. Things got better, Baruch Hashem. But Safek, doubt, also has the gematria of 240. And the rabbis make that connection. And they say Amalek is attacking us throughout the world. They will be wiped out. We're going to see in a moment by Mashiach, Bezrat Hashem, Bekarov, very, very soon. But that can only happen when you uproot the Amalek, the Safek inside you. Because we all have this little inner voice that says, maybe they're right. Maybe we do control the banks. Maybe we do control the media. Maybe Israel is guilty of genocide. And every other bad thing that's being said, these lies being said about us, there's a little bit of safek, but that moment of is Amalek inside us. You know, I heard a shiur. I went with my friend Yoni Benaim over here, went to shiur to hear Rabbi speak in Pesach. He said something amazing. He started a shiur by saying, have you noticed how all the bad people who hate the Jewish people around the world always say amazing things about us? Right? Don't they say great things about us? Bilam, we just saw the brachot and the guarantees of Bilam. Such beautiful way. He wants to destroy us. He says such wonderful, matov olach, such beautiful words he says about us. Right? Ashurenu, Arenu, I see Mashiach coming. Acharit Yamim, beautiful words. Korach, he says, Kulam Kadoshim, all the Jewish people are holy. He also wanted to usurp and destroy things for us. He says nice things about us. Haman, terrible Haman, Amalek. Oh, Mufuzah, Mufurad, they're so powerful. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, all these people we see today. You Jews, you're so powerful, you're so smart, you're so cunning. Banks, media, colleges, using your money to such a... Who says the bad things about us? Our prophets. Read through Jeremiah. It's depressing. We're sinners. We've done bad. Our worst critics are ourselves. But that's the way it's meant to be. That is how you uproot the Amalek from inside you. When there's real self-introspection. That is how we go from charut to chirut. Because when we do that, we're like, you know what? There's room for improvement. There's place that we can grow. And we have to improve our hearts. You know, the Gemara yesterday in Daf Yomi, I was doing the Daf Yomi in Shiur, and the Daf Yomi speaks about the Paradum, this red cow. There's a red cow. Why is the Gemara discussing red cow? It's trying to figure out whether you're allowed to purchase the red heifer, the Paradum, from a goy. And it brings a story to demonstrate that actually you are allowed. It goes backwards and forwards because it's Gemara, and that's what Gemara always does. But at least in its initial analysis, it wants to figure out the idea of the Paradum. And it talks about a certain young, non-Jewish boy called Dama ben Netina. Dama ben Netina, the Gemara speaks about in Avodah Zarah. It speaks about him elsewhere, but it talks about it over here. And this story is fascinating because we're going to learn an idea about the Paradum, but we're also going to learn an idea about Kibud Av V'Em. And it's interesting, we learn the laws of honoring our parents from a non-Jewish boy as well. Now that's interesting in and of itself. But the Gemara talks about Dama ben Netina, that he had a jewel in his house that belonged to his father. A very, very precious jewel. And the Rabbanim needed this jewel because they wanted to put it into the choshen, you know, the breastplate that the Kohen Gadol would wear. For some reason they didn't have one, and they needed one. It went missing, I don't know. They wanted to put it inside. So they walked in and said, we're willing to offer you, and he knew. He's like, I know I can charge you whatever I want, but I can't sell it to you. So why not? He says, because the key to the safe that this diamond, this jewel is kept in, is locked up, and the key is under my father's pillow, and I do not want to wake my father up. That's what he said. So the Rabbi said, this is a one-off opportunity. We're going to find it elsewhere. He goes, I'm not willing to wake up my father. By the way, imagine you're the father, and you had a key under your pillow, and someone came to the door to offer you a vast amount of money, but you're asleep. And your son opened the door, a daughter opened the door, offering you a price that you're not going to get anywhere else. Would you mind if they woke you up? Of course not. You'd kill them if they didn't. Are you out of your mind? I was sleeping. I'll sleep afterwards, but I'll sleep as a rich man instead. Why would you not wake me up? Great question, right? I did a very beautiful answer. I mean, it's a powerful and difficult answer to hear. But Dama ben Netina's father was insane. And he was abused by his father and mother. Maybe that's why non-Jew was used. They don't speak laz, bad about the Jewish people. And he knew that his father would probably kill him, even though he'd make money out of it. That's what it's about. And even he was rewarded for kibbud avayim. You know, later on in life, Dan ben Netina grew up to be an extremely successful person and moved up the ranks in society, the Gemara tells us. And he became extremely famous as a leader and held up among the Romans. And he was about to be inaugurated as one of the top positions in society. His mother and father, who abandoned him as a child, maybe after this event, walked in. And he'd not seen them in 50, 60 years. And his mother walked over to him and took off her glove and slapped him in the face, spat at him, and said, "You were a nothing, you're still a nothing." Can you imagine? And she's about to walk out, and he bent over, he picked up the glove, and he said, "Imma, I think you just dropped this." Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That is how we're not learning the story of, some nice non-Jewish boy to kibbud avayim. We're learning the kibbud avayim even applies when your parents are insane. It doesn't have to love your parents, but it's you have to give them kavod. You have to give them honor. And he was the master of that. He was rewarded, as was his father, because he had a flock. And in his flock, a year later, actually the Gemara says, he had a special method to create paradum, red heifers. He had a special liquid that was red. He would pass it in front of his flock, and only his flock had this ability, says the Gemara, just yesterday's Daf Yomi. And he gave birth to a paradum, a perfectly red cow. And they took the cow, and they said, "Well, how much you want for it?" He goes, "I know I can charge you even more, but I'm only going to charge," listen to the quality of this young boy, "I'm only going to charge you what I would have lost on this diamond deal that I missed out on. That profit margin, I'm going to use that profit margin instead." And became a very wealthy individual. Because of his kibbud avayim. Because of it, not despite of it. The Paraduma has a lot to say about this. Because the Paraduma, we know, is a chok. We don't know the reason for it. But we know that taking this red cow that is perfectly red and burning it and sprinkling it makes a person who is tameh tahor. And the reason it's a red cow, say the rabbis, is to fix the original golden calf that ended up being the breaking of the luchot. That is the secret of the paradumas of the rabbis. More we cannot tell you. How many paradumot have there been in history? 9. First one, Moshe Rabbeinu brought. And they kept bringing them until the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. After that, done. Says the Gemara, but the 10th paraduma will be brought by Mashiach. He's going to finish off and bring the 10th and final paraduma so we all become pure. So you can go and bring korbanot in the Beit HaMikdash that he himself, Mashiach, is going to have to build on Har HaBayit. So he's going to bring the 10th and final para aduma. And that's going to be the final closure. But how do we zocher this? How do we manage to merit all of this? And the answer is we just said. When you engrave the luchot on your heart, when you're able to pull those together, those two disparate elements, and you feel it in your heart. Do not understand all the Torah. Just being there itself gives you some spiritual connection that no one else could be. Just as an interest, you may want to know that in 2022, there were a bunch of paradumot they found here in America, I think in New Jersey, and they shipped them off to Israel. And there's 5 of them right now in the city of Shiloh being protected. I think 2 months ago, they did a practice run on one of them. It's a big deal, by the way. And they found it was actually had 2 black hairs, even more than 2 black hairs already. It's pasul, can't be used. But they did a practice run anyway. There's a feeling of this, my dear friends, in the air. And so when Moshe Rabbeinu broke those luchot, he wasn't just angry. He wasn't just making a statement. He was saying that connection of the first luchot is gone and cannot be recaptured. It's done with. We can't find that connection ever again. But there were a second set. And they were given on Yom Kippur. And that's one of the reasons Yom Kippur is such a happy day, because we got the second set. But there's a difference. As we read in the Kriya today, in the Torah reading, when Moshe Rabbeinu was told, yes, go get me a second set. About Pesalacha, you're going to have to etch it in. I'll write it. But the stones are going to be prepared by you. The first luchot, Hashem got it ready, He prepared it, He wrote, He did everything. It was a one-stop shop. Second luchot, slightly lower madriga, slightly lower level. Moshe Rabbeinu, that means human hands had to be involved in it, and there was never again that kind of connection. Says the Maharal, when Mashiach comes, Bekarov, that original connection of the original luchot that we saw in Pashat Yitro will return to the Jewish people. That, my friends, is what we want. This day, Shiva B'Tammuz, it's impossible to spend the entire day feeling spiritual. We're not at that level. Not that madriga. We read a bit, we hang out. I get it. But at least one moment during this day, just a minute, stop, reflect, put the words of Torah in your heart, feel a real connection, and talk to Hashem. Not from a siddur. Just say, Hashem, I love you. I know there's a separation between us. I know a Malik is in the world and wants to hurt us in my heart, but I want to be free. I want charut, and I need cherut in order to do that. That, my friends, is the secret to repairing every single calamity that happened on this day, during these 3 weeks, and on Tisha B'Av. And there is an ability, my dear friends, Bezrat Hashem, that we won't even see Tisha B'Av this year. God willing, Tisha B'Av will be a thing of the past, and we know that Tisha B'Av itself is the Yom Tov. Eventually we'll be wiped out from our people, totally wiped out, and become a day of goodness and Yom Tov.